Howdy, everyone. Alrighty, so moving along here, I've got the cabin frame now in place. Nothing is bolted permanently at the moment. So I was able to work on these ends of the frame here, mainly the side, this side here, where it runs down and it interferes with this inside radius of the angle. I basically contoured the bottom edge along this face, that bottom edge in here of this piece to form it to fit the inside radius of this angle. And that made a big difference. Here you can see maybe there's a little bit of a gap from the bottom edge of this piece to the top edge of the heavy aluminum angle bracket. This had actually set up quite a bit higher, but all I did was clean off, like I said, the side of the piece down here to match the contour of that radius, and it allowed this whole thing to sink. And of course I did that on both ends. And that made the biggest difference. I just cleaned this side edge down here to match that radius of the heavy angle bracket right here. And that again, that allowed this to sink down into the bracket. So there's a little bit of a gap here, which is fine. But it's not like it used to be. And that also, by doing that on both sides, I was able to bring this down. This top piece now is down to where it needs to be. You have to take a measurement from the longeron, from the face of the longeron to the top of this is 17 7/8, and that's where this sits now. The way that I made that measurement, these pieces are of course riveted to the longeron, so you have to take the thickness of these pieces into account, and these are 0.032-ish, 0.032, 0.035 inch thick. So I just put I use my blue pole, but you can just span something flat and something straight across these side rails, and then measure from that up to the top here. And then if you're so inclined, you can subtract the thickness of this material, which is, like I said, 32 thousandths. So now by doing that, I've got this top part here that's 17 7/8 distance. By putting a digital bubble level across the top, I maintained level this way. And of course you control that by the amount that you trim these ends. So I also did a little bit of sanding on the U-shaped brackets that you put together here. These two angle brackets come together to make this U-shaped channel. On that side over there, I did a little bit of trimming on that just to get it to fit better. But now you can see how well this fits a lot better in this orientation here. This face coming across is a lot better. It doesn't stick out like this way as much as it did. It still sticks out a little bit beyond the edge of the skin if you sight down it this way, or if you lay a straight edge across this. You can see that there's a gap between this front edge of the skin and the face of this, but that's okay. I'm going to explain that in another video here in a minute. But my point is that now this is all trimmed. It sits where it needs to sit. It's nice and flat across the bottom. You know, this bottom edge doesn't run uphill or run downhill. It's nice and flat here. The overall height is correct. The top of the frame is level, and it's level with the fuselage. And now I am starting the drilling process. And again, that's all explained in the written instructions and when you look at the plans. So I'm just going to get started on that next. But let me stop this video and then I'll come back and I'll talk a little bit more about something. All right. Talk to you guys later. All right, so I am now looking at drawing 40, and this is the area that I was talking about where this is the heavy aluminum angle bracket here, and then this is obviously the canopy frame, and you can see how the canopy frame sticks out past the angle bracket a little bit. That's basically just the radius of this piece. So the angle bracket sits on the flat face across here. But the plans and the instructions tell you that this front face is supposed to basically be in line with the front face of the 705 bulkhead. There's no real way to gauge that. So what I had done, like I had shown, you've got those flat pieces. I forget what they're called. I think they're called the forward deck or the aft deck or something that sit on here. I just lined up the front face of my canopy frame with that. And what I should have done was tried to line it up with the front edge of the skin, which is what I was trying to do after the fact by trimming and trying to get it to lay back. Let me go back over to the airplane. I'll go to the other side because that skin is still clecoed. So I think it's safe to use this front edge of the skin as a reference to where the front face of your canopy frame should sit. That's the bottom line that I'm getting at, because it's very difficult to determine this edge here of the canopy frame. Where is that in relation to the bulkhead that's underneath here? So this is a good reference point in my opinion. I didn't think of that until after I had the frame made. So after I started fitting the frame, I was trying to figure out how I can get this face more even with this front edge. However, I really mulled over the plans a lot yesterday, and I found out basically that it's not that important. It's not super important to have this front edge of the frame perfectly in alignment with the side skin here, like I had just showed at the airplane. This face, if it's not in perfect alignment with the edge of the side skin, it's not that important because, and I know this is going to be a little bit difficult to look at. When you look at Plan 49 and you look at especially Plan 48, it basically shows you that this piece here, it gets trimmed on both ends to fit. So you trim it to fit this part of the frame and you trim it to fit the side skin. The actual plastic canopy comes all the way back to this seam here, this dark seam. So the center of the canopy frame is where the actual canopy itself comes back to. So it comes down and it comes down and then it kind of jogs and then it comes down a little bit and then across. But you fit all of that by hand. So if your frame is not perfectly in alignment with the edge of the skin, it's okay, because that metal piece that goes here, you trim it to fit this edge. And then the actual canopy itself, it sits up kind of high. It doesn't sit down here. The actual plexiglass canopy comes across. It comes across through here, and it stops along this edge here. And again, you cut all that to fit. You cut the canopy to fit. You cut this piece here. So, and it shows also in the plans that the other two channels, there are two more channels exactly like these four. Those mount to the back of the canopy. Between that back bulkhead, if you will, and this bulkhead, you're supposed to keep a gap. And again, you custom make all of that. You custom cut the canopy, you fit the rail or the canopy frame, you fit this side piece here and trim it as necessary. So my point is, don't blow a gasket if you're not exactly perfect in getting this face in line with this edge. Because I was getting ready to pull my hair out yesterday trying to move this back another 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch or so, and after looking at the plans, it's not worth the effort. So I am going to continue on as is, and I will come back and talk to you guys soon. So back on the airplane, here is where I am so far. So again, I got the frame in place on the fuselage. It has been leveled across the top. The height from the longerons to the top, that's been measured, and that's correct. I've got it basically, the face of the frame is in line with the front face of the skin. I've got the holes drilled through the skin, through the bracket, through the frame. The skin has been dimpled for a number 8 screw. The holes have been threaded for an 832 screw. And I had that fitted together, and all is well. Remember, when you do these two holes here, these two here that include the skin, these two holes are pre-punched. Cleco the skin in place, have your frame where it needs to be, drill through the skin and through the bracket and through the frame with a number 29 drill bit. The 29 drill bit is the correct size for tapping these holes for 832. Once that is done, remove the skin and then enlarge these holes for the number 8 dimple, which I believe that drill bit size is 19. Once that's done, then you can you can tap these holes through the bracket and through the frame. And then you have to come back and countersink the bracket to accept the dimples that are now in the skin. So that's all done. I've got the frame back in place. I got it temporarily bolted down. I've got it temporarily screwed in place. And I've got it supported up here with this frame. So this is clecoed in place back at the bulkhead. There's a spacer underneath here, which is provided by Vans. The skin, the bulkhead, this support piece, and that spacer are all pre-drilled, so it's just a matter of putting this in place and getting a few clecos in it. And then I've got it rested up here. The angle bracket, if you will remember, the frame had an angle bracket across here that was already riveted in place, so this is just resting on that angle bracket. You can see initially that the gap is really nice. There's a nice gap here between the frame and the bracket. There's a nice seam here. There's no open gaps. and the same in the back. Even though this has not been riveted, you can see there's a decent fit here. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the frame. I've got it back in place. Now all I need to do, you'll notice that I had not pre-drilled this bracket as per the plans. You pre-drill these couple of holes before you do these. I did not want to pre-drill because I'd rather have the assembly on the airplane bolted down real time, real world scenario, and then locate these holes wherever I felt they made the most sense. You can see again that this has been contoured, this has been sanded down, so it's the same curve as the fuselage. It fits really well with the skin. So now all I need to do is decide where I want to put these two bolts, and of course I will lay them out, and I'm going to drill in place just like it is. I'm going to go ahead and drill through the bracket and the frame. These will also be countersunk, and they will be bolts. There will be nuts on the backside, and they do not include the skin. So at this point, the skin is finished. I just need to put the two bolts in here, countersink them flush, and then the skin will go over top of them, held in place with these two screws. So that's what I'm going to do now. And then I'll have to do the same thing on the inside for this bracket. Again, I did not pre-drill this bracket as per the plans. I'd much rather have it in place, real world, bolted to the aircraft, and then put the bolts where I believe they make the most sense. All right,